If cortisol is elevated and off, it basically controls everything else. There's a simple cause and effect. If cortisol is elevated and you can't fall asleep and you can't stay asleep, and you make all your hormones at night for the next day, if I wake up, then my testosterone is low, my progesterone, my estrogen, everything is lower, so I can't function the way that I should. And all of a sudden, your health starts to unravel in slow but meaningful ways.
How do people actionably take this going forward and implement it into their life to reduce cortisol levels?
I think everything in moderation. You have to take a big step back and go, I need to rest, rejuvenate, and recover. We are not computers, and we are being treated like such. So having some non-phone time is critical.
And we are live. Justin, how are you, sir?
I'm doing well, Robert. How are you?
I'm good, man. What's your stress levels like today?
They're always chill.
Pretty chill, man.
I'm a chill guy.
I want to hear about that. So you are the master of managing cortisol from what I've gathered so far, man. So give me the backstory on that. What even made you interested in managing stress hormones?
Well, it's a interesting story. So I started a company many years ago called Elastin Skincare. And Elastin Skincare is today blessed to be one of the, probably one of the most exciting medical skincare lines globally. Sold it to Galderma. They're selling the brand globally, which is lovely. But the first iteration of that formulation had HGH in it, human growth hormone. Because in Europe and other places around the world, not in the US, HGH is used to help accelerate healing and help people recover from wounds faster. We attempted that here in the US. The doctors didn't like it, and they didn't like the systemic effect. So we pivoted to peptides, and we were one of the very early entrants companies using peptides in the space in 2014, 2015. Cut a long story short, we pivoted to peptides. We didn't use it. And as I started looking at other ventures as this company reached a critical mass, we were very intrigued by the endocrinology system. And all of a sudden in like 2019, 2020, everyone was jacked all of a sudden. Everyone was like, it didn't matter where you go. You go to the pool and there's this 90-year-old with a six-pack and pecs and biceps. We were like, what is going on? And we did a deep dive in and we realized that these peptides were being used, and they could at that point quite rampantly. Everyone was using them, and HGH was a thing, and testosterone was a thing, and we started doing a deep dive into it. And whilst it was really an interesting exercise, we learned early on that the government pretty much changed their kind of positioning on it, and all those peptides, with the exception of one or two, were reclassified as biologics. So they weren't really readily available for the masses. And I saw a whole bunch of problems which are coming to light literally this week. It was an article sent to me how these peptides that are being promoted are not made where you think they're made. I think there was an article today in the Wall Street Journal about it. And so as I was going down this path, what really just grabbed me was cortisol. I was absolutely enamored with cortisol. It was, to me, the master hormone. And that's how I reference it in my book. If cortisol is elevated and off, it basically controls everything else. And that's why I was really intrigued by it, because it is, at the time, no one was talking about cortisol. No one really understood cortisol. Everyone was talking about peptides and HRT. And as I learned more and more and more and spoke to doctors and endocrinologists and experts in the space, I put this hypothesis together that turned out to be quite true, quite obvious, but no one had really explained it. And there's a simple cause and effect. When cortisol is elevated and stays elevated, it becomes very difficult to fall asleep. It becomes very difficult to stay asleep. And you make all your hormones in your sleep for the next day. And that was a big aha moment for us in 2020, 2021, because it makes sense, but it isn't something that's at front of mind. And so I've had a bad night's sleep, or I woke up, or what have you. You didn't realize until we spoke to experts that even waking up once at night is clinically defined as a bad night's sleep.
Wow.
Shouldn't happen. I didn't. Yeah, I mean, just once. I mean, I'm in my 50s. I ran to the bathroom, right? That's not good. And so there's this whole kind of premise that I started going down, which is like, okay, so if cortisol's elevated and you can't fall asleep and you can't stay asleep, and you make all your hormones at night for the next day, if I wake up, then my testosterone is low, my progesterone, my estrogen, everything is lower. And so I can't function the way that I should. And you have too many consecutive nights where you're waking up or you're not getting the 7 to 8 hours that you need, you start operating at kind of a disadvantage. And all of a sudden, your health starts to unravel in slow but meaningful ways. And so, really, I was like going on a mission like, why? Why is cortisol all of a sudden so high for everyone? Came back to technology. Because if you go back basically 30 years, this wasn't around.
Mm-hmm.
The internet had just started. The email was beginning to be used in mainstream. Facebook didn't even exist, right? It wasn't even a thing at that point. But what's happened is every year we've made progress and we've developed new tools, new systems, new technologies. And we've forgotten that we're not computers. We're humans. We still need sleep, food, sun, water, exercise, connection. And it's been replaced with disconnection and just looking down at screens and devices all the time. And what's happened is that we've retrained, we've rewired our brain to be on high alert all the time because our body doesn't know the difference between a true emergency and a little vibrational buzz on the phone because we don't know if that vibrational buzz is good news, bad news, work, my kids, something, an emergency, natural disaster. You've no idea. So we've constantly been training our bodies over the years to accept that higher level of cortisol as normal. And so
Mm-hmm.
we're walking around at this like basically the stress state, this fight or flight state, which is our body's like defense mechanism, right? It's designed to save us from a burning building, a saber-toothed tiger, a bear running at us, right? Cortisol is supposed to be our alarm system, but we've turned that alarm system to be on all the time. And when it's on all the time, it's extremely unhealthy because it turns off other systems.
Was this something that you noticed in yourself personally? Like you noticed like your cortisol levels were elevated, your stress markers were high, that was having a negative effect on your testosterone? Like, was there any hit home basis for you where this was directly impacting your livelihood?
I'm sure it was. It wasn't an aha moment for me. It was just like, okay, yeah, this starts to make sense, and then start learning, well, I shouldn't be doing this. Okay, I'll stop doing this. I didn't have personally any um, issues that I could pinpoint at the time. Today, I'm absolutely 100% hyper aware of anything. Like if I don't get the right amount of sleep or if I don't get, to actually be outside, I can tell the difference in my body and my physiology. I can actually feel it.
Mhm.
And what became real interesting is I started this mission through this process that I just explained, but about 2 years into the company and developing products to support cortisol, my wife was diagnosed with a cortisol disease called Cushing's. And so what was just a morbid curiosity into endocrinology and cortisol and stress became quite personal 2 years later. And so it just made my passion and my desire to make this solution viable that much more stronger. So there was never a question about doing this in any other way than the most ethical, honest, and potent way. And so when we developed our products, our supplements, they've gone through pharmaceutical grade clinical trials, double blind placebo, IRB approved. They've been published in medical journals because it had to work. It needed to work. I wasn't going to do a smoke and mirror play where great marketing, but there was no substance behind it. This is a real product that works. And the book, Stress Nation, is truly the why behind how we got in this situation in the first place. It's the why behind the company. It's the why behind how, over the past 30 years, we've put ourselves in harm's way by not truly understanding the effect of technology on the human body.
Totally. So nobody listening's probably gonna throw away their phone, even though they might need to.
No.
So what do you know, like, based off of what you've learned throughout this process, how do people actionably take this going forward and implement into their life to reduce cortisol levels? Because cortisol is supposed to be there, like, it's a healthy
Yes.
hormone that we need, but not in chronically elevated states. So, like, how do we take what we know and craft our life more optimally with that knowledge?
I think everything in moderation. I think it's just the way one should live your life. I think everything in moderation, everything in excess is tends to end up in a negative situation, right? You can drink too much alcohol, you can have too much of something, and it's not great for you. And I'm sure you can come up with 101 things that would make that statement false. But in general, I'm talking these vices that we tend to gravitate to are typically best in moderation.
Mhm.
So technology is not going anywhere, and I'm not anti-technology. I think technology is fabulous. The tools and the ability to access information instantaneously is absolutely incredible. But it doesn't need to sleep. It's a computer. It is always going to be there. And because we are now global, someone's awake every moment of the day, and you can access people at the other side of the world that are awake, and they can be communicating with you. And so there's endless amounts of content and information and communication that is available to you, but you have to take a big step back and go, but I need to rest, rejuvenate, and recover in order to function my very best the next day. We are still human. We are not computers. We are not cyborgs. And we have been treated like such ever since the devices have come available because we've used stress and busyness and productivity as a badge of honor,
Mhm.
right? The CEOs that get up at 4 in the morning and don't go to bed until midnight, they use it and have promoted it as a badge of honor, and that's the only way to do it. And that is probably not the best solution because you clinically need 7 to 8 hours of uninterrupted sleep to regenerate to be at your very best the next day. Kind of like driving your car across country and just stopping for 2 to 4 hours and then going back and doing it again. You're probably not as coherent and your judgment is definitely impaired. So why would you do that in your life, in your business, with your kids, your family, your relationships, your financial um, lifestyle, whatever. You don't want to do that. And so I think everything in moderation is key. So having some non-phone time is critical, right? So I like to get up in the morning. I like to work out first thing, which is also the ideal situation for cortisol because you want your cortisol to spike first thing in the morning. You want it to kind of start to peter out around noon, 1 in the afternoon, start to slowly come down and be as low as possible in the evening before you go to bed because then melatonin kicks in, gets you prepared for sleep, and obviously you go and fall asleep. So working out in the morning is ideal. It works for me very nicely. I try to make sure there are endings to my day, and being an entrepreneur, very difficult, right? Because you feel like you're always on call and you have this thing attached to your hip and you have to respond, right? And
Mhm.
it's a badge of honor, right? I responded quickly. I'm on the ball. I'm there, especially with shareholders or investors or, you know, business partners that you're trying to do deals with. But when you reflect back to the 80s and the 90s, right? There were true endings to different parts of our day. When you left work, you left work. You didn't have the phone in your pocket. You didn't have the emails in your pocket. You went on and did other things. You went on dates, you socialized, you exercised, whatever it is that you did. It didn't involve work and you weren't reachable because you were outside and you didn't have that communication tool in your pocket. So there was a clear ending to the workday. And then there was a beginning to a social or a spiritual part of your day in the afternoons, in the evenings, etc. And then when you walked into work the next day, it started again, right? So you had a clear beginning and a clear ending. With the technology, and especially with COVID, we're working from home, those
Mhm.
boundaries have been so blurred that we are now trying to outperform and do the best work that we can, but at a cost, and that cost is your health.
The, expectation from a communication standpoint has totally shifted as well. I like using the 80s and 90s kind of as a reference point before emails and cell phones and whatnot, but, like, I don't really give out my phone number because people expect phone numbers and text messages to respond to instantly. I feel like with email, people are understanding of it being, responded to during normal working business hours, So I default to email communication whenever possible. And if it's past working hours, like I typically don't even respond to email unless it's like truly urgent. But yeah, I think you have to train people in what to expect from a communication standpoint now, because people's expectations are wildly skewed as well.
Yeah, I like to just reference back to what you said, unless it's hugely urgent. How do
Mhm,
you know if it's hugely urgent? You would have to read every single text that came in to be able to
mhm.
decipher which was hugely urgent. And that's the problem right there, is that it pings, it vibrates, it buzzes, you pick it up, you pick it up. On average, we touch our phone over 2,600 times a day.
Pretty wild.
That's not, and that's the light users, not the heavy users, right?
Mhm.
And, kids today and even, adults, we scroll the length of the Eiffel Tower every day, right? Which is why it's so difficult to have a brand that's direct to consumer, because everyone's fighting for that attention, that grab, to stop that scrolling and then have you actually learn what a product is about, or a service or an offering or what have you. And also, there's a lot of anxiety in keeping up with the Joneses on social media. Do I have the latest trend? Am I wearing the latest clothing? What am I posting? Am I getting likes? Am I getting followers? Is this the image I want? And I kind of, I taught my kids, I said, social media is completely fake. It's the life that people want you to see is what you're experiencing, not really what's happening in their life. Very, very few people actually are that honest and that vulnerable that they post the truth.
Mhm.
What they post is what they want you to know.
How old are your kids?
20 and 18.
20 and 18. What did you do in raising them as far as, like, access to phones? Like, at what point did you feel like that was a viable outlet for them without
Oh
inhibiting
my
their
God,
ability?
it was a very difficult transition and debate. Very, very, very difficult. And of course, we justified it, right? I absolutely 100%. Well, Jake's going to be done with soccer practice, and he'll have no way of communicating with us because payphones aren't around anymore. And so, how are we going to know if we are unable to make that particular practice? Or
Mhm.
he's done early at school. Is he going to walk home, or are we going to want to pick him up? And so we justified it with it's a required communication device. And so we started off with a dumb phone, right? Like the Motorola Razr. There's a flip phone, right? That's what I was trying to find. Couldn't find one. The cell phone companies didn't have them when my kids, we're not talking that long ago, when they were like 13, 14 years of age. Didn't
Yeah.
exist. It was a smartphone or a smartphone. And
Yeah.
so I found myself going down the rabbit hole of turning off features, having screen time, and activating certain things. And I felt like a helicopter parent. I mean, it was just horrible because I was micromanaging all this stuff versus, having this theory that should I be bringing my kids into the world that are more streetwise versus sheltered? Like,
Yeah.
should they be more aware of what's going on around them and the dangers and the horrible things, as well as the wonderful things and the beautiful things that are out there? So, do I want them to be more well balanced? And I think I verged more on showing them more of what the world was really about versus trying to protect them. And I think that's just because I grew up in London. I was on the tube, grew up in the heart of London. I was on the tube at like 8, 9 years old, right? On the buses, I was
Mhm.
running around the streets. That's what I did. I played outside, and I was in a very busy city. And so I was trying not to be a helicopter parent, but I'm sure I was for a few years. And eventually I became more and more relaxed and let them have more access. But I'm certain I didn't get it right. So I don't necessarily think I'm a good example. I think it's a matter of, you have to do what's right for yourselves and your kids, and support them. I've got one kid that'll jump on a bus, another kid that won't jump on a bus. Absolutely won't do it. Can't tell you why. I've raised them the same.
Yeah, I don't know, I've got 2 as well, and they're both really young right now, but it's like, I don't know what the future will hold, and now, especially with, like, AI, like, you really don't know what's real anymore, so, who knows what the best plan of action is gonna be when it comes to exposure
I
to that.
My wife and I are constantly, maybe on the weekend, our kids will show us something and we'll be like, "Is that real? Is that not real? Is that real?" I
Mhm.
mean, it's moving so quickly. The pace of AI is moving so quickly. Um, you can't stop it. I mean, that's the thing, right? Controlling cortisol and supporting your levels throughout the day is something to be mindful of, right? Taking breaks, getting up, going for a walk. especially at night, in the evening, what we call sleep hygiene, the 2 to 3 hours before going to bed is probably the most sacred time to support your cortisol. You don't want to watch a scary movie just before going to bed. You don't want to be having a big meal on alcohol before going to bed. It doesn't work, especially as we get older, right? We have metabolism has to process, and so as you get older, your bowels, your digestive system can't hold on to the food as well as it used to. So if you have a heavy meal late at night and then go to bed, it's your body's going to wake you up and you're going to need the bathroom. So that's not setting yourself up for success.
Yeah.
So having quiet time, chill time, reading a book, doing things that are more relaxing and disconnecting from technology is probably the single most important thing we can do 2 to 3 hours before bed. Have a hot shower, a warm bath, have a ritual about going to bed so that you set yourself up for success. You certainly don't want to be talking to your financial advisor at 30 minutes before going to bed. Just
Yeah, there's been a couple times, man, where, like, I'll be stressed with the business, and I start going down the spreadsheet rabbit hole before
okay.
going to bed, and I'm like, "Man, I'm just screwed. There's no going to bed now."
Been there, done that, brother. Been there, done that. Right? I mean, I'm not a saint. I do this. I have some bad habits that I try to get myself out of as well. But it all makes sense, right? I mean, if you're stressed and your brain is wired and you've got monkey brain, you can't fall asleep. You can't fall asleep. You can't stay asleep because your
Mhm.
brain will kick back on, and you go to sleep. You get a few hours, all of a sudden you're up at 1 in the morning. You're like, I'm still thinking about that, right? Because I can't turn my brain off, right? It's still going, and that disrupts that sleep pattern. And so you're not functioning your very best the next day. Things are slower. It's sluggish. Then you run to food to try and give you more energy to keep you awake. And you see the cycle. And
Mhm.
so it's very important to be mindful of, your sleep. I think that's more important than anything else that we have in our health world, right? Yes, you can say exercise, food, water, all that. But if you do not sleep, you cannot function.
Yeah, it's a slippery slope for sure. I mean, I get pre-routine lab work done, and if I have a period of, compromised sleep, my testosterone literally gets cut in half. Like, it's pretty drastic.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah,
do
I
you
mean, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, and I'm glad you brought that up because honestly, you don't need labs to tell you what your cortisol levels are.
Yeah.
Just track your sleep, man. If you're sleeping really good, like a baby, you're either really blessed or you've mastered the art of unwinding or not letting things bother you so that you can get into a more relaxed state. But if you are not sleeping, I can tell you your cortisol's high. You don't need to go get it tested.
Do you use, like, a sleep tracking device like a Oura Ring or Garmin watch or anything like that?
I personally don't. I have a smart bed, and the bed will tell me, but I don't need it because I'm now so aware of my sleep. I can tell if I've slept well. If I wake up and I am raring to go, I know I got a good night's sleep. My deep sleep was on point, 60 to 90 minutes. I know I probably got my 7 to 8 hours simply by looking at the clock as when I went to sleep and when I woke up. But if I wake up and I'm dragging, I'm sluggish, I just know I had a really bad sleep
Yeah.
and isn't going to function. And in some cases, you can offset that. So if you've had a really bad night's sleep, and typically you don't, if you do work out in the morning, you can trick your body into getting back into sync, right? The last thing you kind of want to do is go to the fridge and try and eat your way out of it, which a lot of people do. They're like, I need more coffee. I need this. Not going to help. But maybe go for a walk, get outside, get some fresh air. That might invigorate you and help offset some of that. And then just make sure that the following day, you really are maniacal for that sleep hygiene process. So sleep hygiene is the 2 or 3 hours before bed we've spoken about, but also the environment that you sleep in. So a dark room, a room that's at least 63 to 65 degrees in temperature, right? You don't want a hot room. Your body needs to lower its body temperature to fall asleep. You want to make sure you're not sleeping in polyester or synthetic fibers that keep you hot because as soon as your body gets too hot, you wake up.
Mhm.
And so it's about that. Also, listening to some sleep music is wonderful, helps get your body relaxed and into a meditative state and fall asleep and stay asleep. So there's a bunch of things in the sleep hygiene category that I highly recommend that we do. And let's not get caught up in trying to track data, right? You know if you slept well and you know if you slept really poorly. It's
Mhm.
not rocket science, but it is on a 24-hour cycle. So you have 2 or 3 or 4 days of bad sleep, you're a zombie and you know it.
Totally agree. Yeah, I've really doubled down on sleep hygiene. Like I got one of those thermoregulating mattress toppers that keeps it cool throughout the night, which was
That's awesome.
massively impactful in a positive way. Another thing that I've noticed is from a circadian rhythm standpoint, like I've really focused on going to sleep and waking at the same time each night, regardless of weekday versus weekend. And I feel like a lot of people totally shift that during the weekend. But I think keeping it consistent improves overall circadian rhythm so that your body's ready and willing to wake up when you would like it to and go to sleep when you need it to.
Yeah, you don't need me on this podcast, Robert. You are well educated on this subject. Absolutely. Yeah, I agree with you. My body is absolutely in sync 7 days a week. I'm in bed before 9 and I'm awake about 4:30, 5 o'clock, and I'm off to the gym 7 days a week. It is about consistency. Your body likes consistency. Your body does not like when it's 7, then 9, then 10, then 11. It just, bedtime varies. There is no rhythm, no circadian kind of rhythm that you alluded to that your body can get into that's sequencing with ideally the moon and the sun, right? Because your body
Mhm.
needs sunlight. It needs that. We were designed to fall asleep when the sun went down. We were designed to wake up when the sun comes up. But
Totally.
all our luxuries and technologies and inventions that we have manifested over centuries has slowly cut into that sequencing, which is 100% natural. So if you can be consistent like you are, that's ideal because your body just tells you it's time for bed. You can't fight it anymore, right? Your body is just simply telling you, that's it, I'm done. So when our friends say, let's have like 7 o'clock dinner reservations, half the time we're like, we'll do it, but we are fighting through it because, of course, you have to be social. You can't do that. So it's not about being perfect and you strive for it. But we suffer the next day because our body will wake up at 4:30, 5 o'clock. It isn't negotiable. Our body will naturally wake us up at that point because it's been trained to do that.
Mhm. Yeah, I don't know why people do these things so late at night. Like I'm old in that setting, man. Like I do not like staying up past 9 p.m. no matter what. When it comes to the circadian rhythm that you talked about, waking up with the sun, etc., how much emphasis do you put on like the light therapies, like the blue light blocking glasses, things of that nature?
It's all very viable. I mean, I don't put an emphasis on one thing over another other than protect sleep and make sure
Mhm.
that sleep is the thing that you guard the most. Because I think people get caught up in, I need to do this exactly this way. And we're all different. And so what affects you may not affect me and vice versa. And so I think there's a lot of room for experimentation and trying to figure it out. So I'm not a big absolute guy.
Mhm.
I do believe in blue light is very challenging for us, and we're in front of it all day long. I mean, you and I are in front of it right now. We've got the screens coming at us, our lights in our studios are coming at us, and that's blue light. And that's doing the job of saying, okay, you need to stay awake, and it's daytime. And so your body is creating cortisol at the healthy levels, which is like you said, you need, right? It's the fight or flight levels we don't need. And so if you're fighting your body because it's say 10 o'clock at night, you're watching TV, you've got screens, not only are you fighting the blue light, but you're fighting the content that's coming at you and you're artificially telling your body to release more cortisol. And
Mhm.
what you're doing is you're suppressing melatonin release. Your body makes melatonin when cortisol hits to a certain point and your body's like, okay, it's time to go to bed and start to regenerate. But if you're constantly pushing cortisol up and up and up because you're getting this blue light infusion and the content coming at you, whether it's a cell phone, computer screen, or a television, you're simply suppressing melatonin and you're tricking your body saying it's still daylight, it's still daylight. And so your body isn't in sync anymore. So yeah, I'm a big believer in blue light filters, whether it's in your glasses or you have specific blue light lenses when you watch TV at night. Things like Kindles don't have that issue, which is a
Mhm.
wonderful way of reading or read from a book, an old-fashioned book. But yeah,
Old-fashioned book, man. Who would have thought that would have been a biohack? Use some
absolutely an
old-fashioned
old-fashioned book, right? I mean, talk about going back. I mean, what my book does, Stress Nation, it talks very much about nostalgia of going back into the 70s and 80s. You know, when I was a kid, I went to the library or I looked in something called the Encyclopedia Britannica for information because Google didn't exist,
Mhm.
right? And if it wasn't in the library or Encyclopedia Britannica, it didn't exist.
Yeah.
Pretty much, that was it. And so today, you just have access to tons of information, but actually reading from a book is extremely therapeutic. obviously educational as well, or has an entertainment factor, but you'll be surprised how it can also help you go to sleep.
Hello, y'all. Robert Sikes, the founder of the Savage Perspective Podcast, the host of the Savage Perspective Podcast. As y'all know, we do not roll ads throughout the podcast. This is not an ad technically, but I'm going to throw it in there just in case. The reason I don't put ads in here is because I don't want y'all to be distracted with minutes and minutes of just irrelevant content for me to make a buck. That's not good for y'all. I don't want to be inauthentic like that. However, I would be remiss if I didn't point y'all towards a great resource. So all of the guests that I bring onto the show are designed to give y'all insight, give you information, give you value that allows you to optimize your health from a ketogenic standpoint. I've built out a resource that takes everything I've learned over the years as a podcast host, as a professional natural bodybuilder, as a coach in the space, and I've compiled all that into a very, very comprehensive system, which also includes a community, a membership community from an accountability standpoint. It's got a ton of resources like a free workout app. It's got a AI that's built out based off of all of my content, so it's not giving you conflicting information. And the program has over 150 videos that breaks down all the details as to how to manipulate your macros, optimize your metabolism, build muscle, lose fat, all the good stuff that y'all are striving to do. And also, since I don't do ads on the podcast, all of the affiliate discount links that I have for various different brands live in this program as well. That literally pays for the cost in and of itself. So if you're interested in doing a deeper dive, actually using these tools and reaching your highest self, check out ketobodybuilding.com.
Yeah, I think one of the best pieces of advice I'd ever gotten was read a fictional book before bed. Like normally when I'm reading, like I'm reading business books, I'm reading, nutrition books, I'm trying to like learn and study and do research, but I don't ever read fictional books. But when I do, it's like I totally just check out and relax. And I think that's ideal scenario right before you go to bed.
100%. Yeah, just finding what works for you. I find being with my dogs fabulously relaxing, being with my wife relaxing, my kids, etc. You turn on the TV and it's really interesting because yes, there's an entertainment factor, but often when you watch a television and you binge watch, you're exhausted afterwards.
Mhm.
You're absolutely drained, and that should be very telling on what screens and technology can do to you. So I think, again, everything in moderation, nothing to the extreme. And whilst technology isn't going anywhere, we can learn to use it as it benefits us as humans, as individuals, versus being controlled by it, which is where we are right now. And it's no accident that Zuckerberg is in the courtroom in California defending the argument that social media is addictive and that he's deliberately made it addictive.
It's definitely addictive for sure. But like you said, it's a tool. I mean, we're able to make a bigger impact and reach a larger audience. And if you're using that for good, that's a positive thing. But I mean, the same is true. So I don't know what the outcome is like the net outcome. I don't know if the net outcome is positive or negative. I mean, I try to be more optimistic than just cynical, but man, it's hard sometimes, especially on social media, because it seems like people's interest and attention just flocks to the negative disparity, and it's just unfortunate.
Yeah, because it's not just the post; it's all the comments and the good and the bad and the ugly, right? That all comes with that in the comment section. So yeah, social media is it's a tool. It's an application, and unfortunately, a lot of people spend way too much time on it and live and swear by what they see,
Mhm.
and then they get into either heated debates or negative comments, and that can send people into a spiral.
Mhm.
And I think that's the challenge: is how do you use it as a tool to support you in a healthy way, and not get caught up in the dopamine, basically the empty dopamine fix that you get every time.
So for you as a business owner, like you're trying to bring awareness to your brand, you're trying to put on social media. That's where people's attention is, where their eyes are. So that's like your viable connection point to them. How do you have that? How do you bridge the gap between that, but then also like not becoming so fixated on it and having that keeping up with the Joneses mentality as it pertains to what the viral trends are, what the
I don't.
algorithm suggests? Like, how do you do that?
Um, I don't touch social media. I've never had a social media account other than what I needed for business.
Hmm.
And then people far smarter than I take it and run with it. I don't check my social media. I don't look at it. I don't have social media on my phone at all. If I want to look at social media, I will go onto my computer, which makes it a lot more accessible for me during the day, but absolutely impossible for me really to navigate on my phone with any ease, because I need passwords and usernames for every single account that you'd want to check. And it just really has no interest for me.
Yeah.
And so I'm blessed that I have an employee that runs it and does it. But if you look back at my social media account, it didn't exist up to like 3 or 4 years ago. I just didn't have it. Doesn't interest me whatsoever because I know it's fake.
Yeah.
For me, that's how I've
It's a good
justified.
outlook, man. I like that. I like that. Post and ghost is kind of how I do it. Like I don't really get fixated in the comments. Like I'll post something or I'll have somebody post something or I'll schedule it. But then the dopamine feedback loop becomes a very slippery slope for more people than not.
I agree with you. And it's one asset, right? I still believe we've gone back to advertise on television because that seems to be an interesting route. But just using social media, hey, listen, people have made billions of dollars doing it and God bless them, right? But I know for me personally, it just doesn't interest me. I find the things that are funny that my friends send me, and I go on a computer and I'll look at those, and yeah, they're funny, but I don't ever comment. I don't read the comments, and I don't go down the rabbit hole because I don't know. To me, it's just not real. I'd much rather go meet someone for lunch, go hang out, go for a walk, do something with someone versus interact on this screen. I think that's one of the biggest misses that the younger generation have right now is this obsession with Snapchat and tracking their friends and these constant chats versus when I grew up, we actually went to parties on a Friday night and said, whose house is going to be the party at? Where are we going? Where are we going to hang out? I mean, I couldn't wait to get my driver's license, right? It was all about who got the driver's license and where you could go hang out. And we would just drive up and down the high street for the hell of it, right? We didn't go anywhere. We just drove up and down, we'd hang out, we'd get a milkshake or a hamburger or something, and there'd be like 20 of us all hanging out. It wasn't about being at home and being on our screens and doing that. I think because of that, there's some life skills that are missing from generations. And one of the biggest aha moments for me, and it blew me away, was reading an article in the New York Magazine about how Hims had an IPO for $1.8 billion. And we all know Hims has been, they're the one that sells the Viagra medication. That wasn't the surprise. The surprise to me was who their customer base was. And I would assume it was, 50, 60-year-old men. They made a fortune selling discreetly to 20-year-olds.
20-year-olds?
20-year-olds. I'll send you the article. 20-year-olds.
Wow.
Why? Because when we grew up, we learned how to talk to the opposite sex, right? We learned to flirt. We learned to have the silver tongue, and we'd go on a first date. And we were lucky we'd get a kiss. We'd go on a second or a third date, but you're building a relationship. You're learning about the other person, and you're becoming mentally attracted to that person as well as physically attractive. During the time when Hims became public company, right, it was swipe left, swipe right, and let's hook up based on how you look, and I'll meet you in 20 minutes at some random place, and we'll hook up. Well, there was no connection. There was no intimacy, which I like to break down to into me you see, intimacy, into me you see. Well, if you haven't had that first, second, third, fourth date, and you haven't learned about the other person, 20-year-olds were having a really difficult time getting aroused because of performance anxiety. Then they got in the mix of marijuana or ADHD medication and all kinds of other substances that would get in the way, but primarily anxiety. So they get a nice discreet package in the mail in a brown bag, and then they could start and date and do what people were doing at that particular time. And that's how Hims made their money. That is a perfect example of how the skill set of interacting, communicating, engaging evaporated because they didn't know how.
Yeah.
Because they grew up behind a screen.
That is crazy, man. I mean, I understand social media is necessary evil in some regard, but like I've always gravitated towards the podcast because it's a long form medium. Like we can have a conversation, we can flesh something out in greater detail than you can over an Instagram reel. I like the newsletter because I like writing. It gives me an opportunity to think about a topic in detail and like write it in a eloquent manner. But like communicating with people face to face, like I'll go to these conferences and it just comes naturally. I think podcasting has made me a better communicator. But you're absolutely right. People that are just defaulting to their phone and the swiping and the, chats on the phone, like they don't know how to hold a conversation, look at somebody in the eye, maintain eye contact. Like it's just a total skill set removed.
Removed.
And from a generational standpoint, like there's going to be an implosion at some point in the future, I feel.
I don't know if it's I think it's a slow miss.
Yeah.
Every single year, we're slowly missing the mark. And I don't think it'll come rushing back. I think some people will and some people won't. But like, it was interesting because I was having communications with some employees in my company that are in their mid to late 20s. They were talking about how they're frustrated with their grandparents because they don't communicate effectively with text, or it's very difficult to communicate with them. And I suggested things like, have you written them a letter? Not an email, not a text, but have you actually sat down and written a letter because you're so far away? Yes, you pick up the phone, but they're too busy for that.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, write a letter. And we did an experiment. They wrote letters. They got letters back. And they're like, whoa. I'm like, yeah, I know. But they grew up in a generation in which they didn't have email or technology. And I can tell you that when I was in my 20s and 30s, I was so on point with technology. I could go inside and out, different operating systems. I could fix anything, do anything to help my needs. And as I've gotten older, I just can't keep up. And so I now go to my kids for help with technology, right? When I used to be the go-to person, right? In fact, my mother-in-law's phone, I'm not in there as Justin, I'm in there as technical support, right? Because she'd always call me for technical support. But today I'm like, speak to my son, because it's beyond me now. It's beyond me.
And it's impossible to keep up for sure. But I feel like it's not going anywhere, obviously, as you and I both know. But I feel like there's definitely a craving and a desire for people to actually have that true, intimate, old school, old-fashioned connection again. I think
I hope so.
the AI is coming stronger than ever. The technological advancements are not going anywhere. But I feel like people crave true human, intimate interaction in a way that they never have before. I don't know what returning to that looks like, but I feel like the desire is there.
I normally end my podcast interviews because the podcaster says, what's the one piece of advice that you can give? And I always give the same advice, and that is, go find your partner and go play.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't mean go have sex. If that's what you want, go have sex. I'm saying go play, go flirt, go do something really fun. And guess what? Your cortisol will tank and you will be alive again in a different way than you experienced, because you should touch your partner more times than you touch your freaking phone.
Mm-hmm.
You just should. You should have fun, hugs, kisses, food fights. It doesn't matter, but play. Go do something you would have done when you were 20 years old, 18 years old, when you were flirting with your boyfriend or girlfriend at the time, right? Go relive that and watch how that spark comes alive again, that interaction comes alive again, and that cortisol drops, because it's too easy to get caught up in, life, really, right? Work, finances, politics, relationships. It gets very messy. But if you can go back to just be with each other and bring back that spark by doing what you used to do, it won't take you more than 10 seconds to be like, damn, that was the best thing I ever did today. Yeah, just boom.
100%, man. 100%. I've got 2 kids that are very young, and those kids are like a litmus test for me. Like if I'm on my phone too much, they make it apparent, they make it known, and they don't even have to say anything. Like I just want to be the best version of a dad that I can be. And it doesn't take too much thinking to recognize that the best version you can be doesn't involve just staring at a phone. Like you're not being present, like eye contact, interaction, touch, human interaction. I mean, that's relationships is what it's all about. Like we all intuitively know that. We all inherently know that. Like if we were on our deathbed, we wouldn't worry about what our phone text message was displayed. You know, human interaction and connection is what matters. Yet we take it for granted, and we have so many opportunities every single day that just float by, and we don't capitalize on them. It's unfortunate.
It's interesting. When I was when my kids were younger and they would have a fight, I would actually do like mental like interrogations with them where I'd make them face each other and look
Mhm.
each other in the eyes and be like, that's the only brother you'll ever have. That's the only sister you'll have. Just try and read them connect and just see them like hug each other. And it'd be like, oh, yes, finally. Okay. Because I think, again, you get caught up in your own world. Kids get caught up in their own world, and it's too easy to get caught up into, what he said, what she said, and they don't get to be and play the way they used to. Like play outside. My mom used to say, "Go play with the traffic." Like literally, go outside and get dirty and play. Doesn't quite happen that way.
Yeah.
The world's become a very different place, and that's fine. But I think we just need to recognize what we've lost along the way and how we can be conscious and mindful in trying to regain that.
100%, man.
Yeah.
Well, what I know you wake up early, you go to sleep, same time, consistent, train in the morning,
Mhm.
uh, get off your phone early, have that good sleep hygiene. Are there any other tangible, non-negotiables that you structure around your day to keep your stress state at a minimum?
Yeah, I mean, definitely frequent breaks, get up, go for a walk. Whether I'm in my home office or at my physical office, get up, get some fresh air, play with a dog, whatever you can do, kind of recheck in so that things aren't just, heads down all day, 8 to 12 hours. I'm not a proponent of that. Sure, I've done 16-hour days very, very frequently in my career. But as I've gotten older, I've realized that I make better decisions with more rest, more time, and more thought process, and rely on other people to give guidance as well, and not just be like, quickly make a decision. I don't think, like you said, anyone on a deathbed's going to say, I wish I'd responded to my emails faster, right? I
Mhm.
don't think that's going to be a thing, right? But damn, I wish I'd taken a little bit more time to make that decision or think this thing through. For me personally, other tips that I can give is we all know about eat healthy and exercise. I think a lot of people trip up with what's the best diet or what is your diet. And I think the best advice that I was given, and I like to kind of pass it on, is it's not rocket science. There's been thousands of diets that have come out, whether it's keto, paleo, vegan, South Beach diet or Atkinson's diet. There's so many diets that are out there. The bottom line is find one that works for you and stick to it, whatever it is, right? And the bottom line for me is consume less calories than you burn.
Yeah.
That's really the trick, and it doesn't matter what diet you're on or what you eat, but consume less calories than you burn, and you won't gain weight. When it comes to exercise, big proponent of lifting weights and walking. Just
Mhm.
walk. Go for a walk. I think there's plenty of studies that say, anything north of like 7,000 steps a day and, that visceral fat will just start to melt off of you. Just walk. If you run, nothing wrong with running, but you'll burn muscle as well as fat. Whereas if you walk, you will just get into a specific state where you burn the fat and you retain the muscle. And so as you get older, it's important to keep yourself healthy, lean, and pack on as much muscle as you possibly can because it's harder to get and it's harder to keep the older we
Mhm.
get. And so lifting weights is not just good for muscles, it's excellent for bone health, osteoporosis, and so forth. You want to put your bones under load, which you can do by lifting weights. I'm not saying hundreds and hundreds of pounds, like, whatever is a weight for you, whether it's 10 pounds or whether it's, 40 pounds, doesn't really make any difference. Lift weights. But we all get caught up in, the latest fad diet or the latest fad exercise regimen. And I think it's important just to relax off of that because that's causing everyone a lot of anxiety and stress, right?
Mhm.
Eat healthy, eat less calories than you burn, exercise by walking, lifting weights, and play sports that you enjoy and have fun with, but don't overthink it. I think they say that eating the cookie is not as bad for you as the guilt you feel from eating the cookie. The guilt is far worse than the cookie that you consumed.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with all fronts there, man. I feel like a lot of people definitely are majoring in the minors right now, especially with social media. Everybody kind of having their own hot take on what the driving factor for X, Y, or Z disease or ailment is. So I think eating real food, moving your body, getting quality sleep. I mean, people just return to the basics and everyone's going to be better off.
I agree with that 100%. Absolutely. I got a little bit into the minutia, but your high-level approach, I agree with 100%. And so I think just what they say, don't take life too seriously. You'll never get out alive.
Yeah, 100%, man, 100%. What, from a kind of going back a little bit to sleep hygiene, do you have a stance on melatonin? Because I know a lot of people use melatonin in preparation for sleep. Some people are of the opinion that since it is a hormone, too much exogenous supplementation of it hinders endogenous production. Some studies support that, some don't. Do you have a stance one way or the other?
Yeah, so we offer so we have a cortisol brand. We have called Rebalance Health, and we have a supplement approach, which is a lozenge, a mint that you suck on, and it helps keep your cortisol in line throughout the day. You take them throughout the day as you need it, like a cough drop. And then we have a lozenge mint at night, and one comes with melatonin and one comes without for exactly that reason.
Mm.
The one hormone that your body will always make is melatonin. It is very interesting. You can take a lot of melatonin and just stop taking it, but your body will still make melatonin, unlike testosterone, right? If you start on TRT and you stay on it for a long time, 18 months, the study suggests that you have an 80% chance of never making that hormone again, even if you come off the drug.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And so it's kind of daunting. And so at the right point in your life, that may be a great viable solution. But if you're 20 trying to get jacked and you're taking testosterone, you need to be aware that you might be on it for the rest of your life because you may hinder your body's ability to make it. It's not the case with melatonin. With melatonin, your body becomes just used to it. You build up a tolerance to it. So if you start taking lots of melatonin, you're going to need more and more and more for it to have the same effect because your body just becomes used to that quantity. And so from the studies that I've read, there's no duration that has been recommended thus far, but it is recommended that you cycle so that you don't build up that tolerance. So for us, we would say if you take our product for 30 days with melatonin, we'd recommend the next 30 days that you don't take, you take the melatonin-free version of it, simply to give your body that ability to adjust. Personally, if I know I've had a stressful day or I've worked longer hours and I haven't been able to bring my cortisol down, I will take the melatonin iteration because I know I need to get my sleep.
Yeah.
If I haven't had that crazy of a day, then I take the melatonin-free one. So I cycle on and off and I make decisions consciously based on how I'm feeling. If I'm going to bed and I am wiped out, I'll take the melatonin-free version. Right? If I'm going to bed and I'm like, I'm still thinking about my spreadsheets and the podcast and everything else that we're doing, then I'm like, I'm taking 2 melatonin tonight because I'm going to make sure I get my sleep. So I use it as a way of ensuring that I get the quality sleep that I need in order to function.
Makes total sense. What was that product called again?
So we have basically 4 SKUs. One is called Mellow Mints, which is for everyone, and it's a lozenge and it's filled with ashwagandha, maca, cordyceps, all different types of natural roots and herbs from Ayurvedic or Chinese medicines that are compressed into basically a Altoid, and it tastes like a mint, and you pop it in your mouth and you just suck on it, and it helps bring your cortisol levels back into the normal levels. Because if you think, we're still using technology, we're all working, we're stressed, our cortisol levels are going up. So all that we're doing is trying to take the edge off to bring it back down into normal levels so that you can still function. We also recommend that you take them throughout the day. Why? Because a lot of companies have forgotten that we have a metabolism. So when you put food or fluids into your body, your metabolism utilizes those within 4 to 6 hours. That's why you have breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Right? You're hungry because your body's using the fuel that you're putting in it. So if you take a supplement for cortisol once in the morning, trust me, by 10, 11 o'clock in the morning, it's gone. It's not in your body. So how can it support you? It's impossible because cortisol is doing this all day long, up and down, fluctuating. So we recommend you take throughout the day to help offset your cortisol spikes and get them back into normal levels. The second product we have during the day is called Meno Mints. So we have Mellow Mints for everyone and Meno Mints specifically for women going through perimenopause. We actually have 3 IRB clinical studies proving that we can reduce perimenopausal symptoms by 94%.
Targeting the cortisol specifically?
Cortisol specifically. Because what's happened is women going through perimenopause are experiencing symptoms that have been exacerbated by a lack of sleep, which is triggered by elevated cortisol levels. So if we can bring the cortisol levels down and we enable the woman to go to bed and actually get to sleep to make the hormones that she needs naturally. And yes, as you enter perimenopause, your hormones are fluctuating and often you're not making, but your body knows what it needs to function the next day and it does make those hormones, even if they're very little.
Mm-hmm.
And what we noticed was when women were getting their sleep because their cortisol was back in alignment, their symptoms disappeared. And I'm not exaggerating here. We had over 331 women in our clinical studies. Most clinical studies are like 10 to 20 people, right? So we had over 331. And the average reduction in hot flashes was 80%.
That's pretty significant.
Very significant. We were invited to present our findings at the North American Menopause Society because it was so significant. We won Time Magazine's Best Invention of the Year at the end of 2024. The product works. And so you have those 2 options, Mellow for everyone, Meno specifically for women going through perimenopause. And then at night, you pick your Dream Mint. We have Dream Mints. And you pick either with or without melatonin. And again, it supports you falling asleep and most importantly, staying asleep. Because we did lots of dosage studies to figure out what ingredients were getting into the body at what levels. And one of our studies that we published showed that compared to gummies or pills or things like that, melatonin would get into the body quickly, but it also leaves the body quickly. Because melatonin doesn't keep you asleep. Melatonin prepares you for sleep. That's all it does, right? Your body has to take over. And so if you get a big infusion of melatonin, but yet your cortisol is still somewhat high, guess what's going to happen? As soon as the melatonin starts to leave your body and start to wear off, you wake up again. And so the people on the cycle where they take 2, they wake up at 12, they take a few more, they go to sleep, and they wake up again. And so it's very important to get into a cycle, which is why I talked about being maniacal for preparing for sleep and staying 2 or 3 hours before bed and getting into the right mindset, getting into a relaxed state. Make it a ritual to prepare so that you are going to bed in the most relaxed, calm state possible so that you can stay asleep.
Makes total sense. What's the milligram dosage on the ones containing melatonin?
2.5.
2.5 per lozenge?
Per lozenge. Very, very small. But it's, again, we're lozenges, so we've got a different delivery mechanism than going into the stomach.
Right.
And so even though you're sucking on it and the saliva goes down, your body is absorbing the products and they have a different effect on you. And so that's the one beauty of, sublingual delivery is that it's a very different delivery system and arguably more effective.
I like it.
Yeah.
Well, Justin, very interesting. What was the name of the book again?
The book is called Stress Nation. It's available on Amazon. It's also an audiobook and Books A Million. It's all over the place. I was very privileged. The book became a national bestseller in the first week. And it's written in a very simple, easy to explain kind of dialect and vernacular. I'm not very big on the scientific medical speak because it goes over everyone's head. And so it's very important for me just to relay the information in a very fun, simple way. And the way the book's written, you can jump to the chapter on menopause, you can jump to the chapter on stress or sleep or hygiene and so forth. It's very easy to read, and we've made it kind of available at a 12th grade reading comprehension, if not 10th grade, just so it's easy for people to understand. I think it gets a little crazy when people start talking above everyone's comprehension level, and we don't quite understand the gist of it. And I think this is very linear. It's cause and effect. Technology has disrupted our natural body's circadian rhythm, and we can't fall asleep, we can't stay asleep, and our body can't make hormones. It's that simple. That's really what's happened in the world over the past 30 years, and everyone's health has declined because of it.
Yeah, no, I totally agree on all fronts, man. I mean, we are definitely finding ourselves in a bit of an epidemic as far as health is concerned right now. So I feel like anything we can do to get the needle moving in the right direction, sleep and stress reduction being probably one of the top levers that you can make a meaningful difference with. So you're fighting the good fight for sure, man.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy, right? How do you fix it? You just go backwards a little bit and remember we're human.
Yeah,
I think we forget we're human. Everyone thinks we're machines. I can keep going forever. No.
You can until you can't. And by then, it's oftentimes too late.
Agreed.
Well, very cool, Justin. I will definitely link out to the book, the product, all that good stuff. Where can people go to find you on social? I know you're not making your social media posts, but where do people go to find out more about you?
Yeah, go to rebalancehealth.com or Rebalance Health on whatever social media platform. I think Instagram and Facebook, the big ones for us. And honestly, we've got hundreds of blogs and articles. We've got articles coming out in Forbes magazine. And, again, we're just trying to talk about how we can slow down so that we can lead a better, healthier, happier life.
I love it. Well, that is a message we would all benefit from implementing. So, like I said, man, keep fighting the good fight. You got the work cut out for you, but more people saying that message, the better. So keep doing what you're doing, man.
I appreciate that, Robert. Thank you so much. Likewise. Thank you for having me on and for spreading the word.
Always a pleasure.